Welcome back to Mid-Maryland Votes. Tonight, Ethan and I take you on a road trip to Better Maryland Schools event, where people from different races, religions, political parties, and backgrounds came together around one issue: the future of our children and parental rights in education. From Policy 443 to school board elections, this wasn't about left versus right. It was about whether schools are serving students and families or politics and special interests. Now let's get into it. Welcome to Mid-Maryland Votes. I'm your host, Mark Flynn. With me is my co-host,
Ethan Lowen.
And Ethan, why don't you talk about our special show?
Well, we were reached out to by an organization called Better Maryland Schools that deals with various issues going on in our public schools here in Maryland. And obviously, as people who have followed the show are aware of, there's quite a few. And they are trying to fix those issues. And they had an event, a community-wide event, and they asked us to join and to talk to some of the guests.
Excellent. So we were able to go remote, which we've never done before at Mid-Maryland Views. We had to go out there. And I just have to preface and say we did have a few audio problems at this event. There's a lot of background noise, things that we're working through, but we're going to get better at that. But please stick with it, because the subject matter we're talking about is vital to your children and my children in the Frederick County and Maryland public schools. Isn't that right?
Absolutely. I mean, the level of expertise, the breadth of knowledge and experience that was present in that room and speaking to us was very educational, very thought-provoking.
So can you give us a little background on Better Maryland Schools? I know it's a nonpartisan organization, mostly made up of parents and professionals.
Yes.
Who really believe that the Maryland public schools has fallen. Not that they are falling, but they have already fallen and are not delivering the goods when it comes to educating our kids. How do you feel about that?
Well, I mean, it's hard to disagree when you simply look at the numbers. You know, Maryland, which if you go back 10, 14 years ago and earlier, any time before that, our schools were routinely even in the top 10%, but certainly in the top 20% nationally every single year. We have dropped into the bottom 50% over the last 7 years in particular. There's no denying that.
What would you say to the people who say, well, that's because of COVID, or that's this generation, or that's AI, or whatever it is that precipitated this plunge by Maryland public schools from, we were like third or fourth in the country. I think this last report had us in the 40s.
Right. And you're referring to U.S. News and World Reports there. One of the rankings that are out there that are very highly respected. Yes, we were routinely in the top 10%, first, second, or third. And we have now dropped into the 40s, according to U.S. News and World Reports. And while there has been suffering among all children across our country as a result of COVID and the things that were done that affected education during those couple of years, the fact is we also have dropped comparatively. So when you compare us to the rest of the country, we have dropped dramatically.
And also during this event, we were able to talk to people from various backgrounds in politics. I mean, there were Democrats, independents, and Republicans in that room, which I loved. Also, all with the same goal. They want good public schools for their kids. Please tell me more about Better Maryland Schools as far as what their mission is. What's their purpose?
Their purpose is simply to take what Maryland used to do, what is best practices, what has been accepted as best practices for centuries even, and to simply reinstate them. You know, what their point is that what changed primarily is that we moved away from best practices beginning about roughly 16 years ago. And as a result, our performance started to drop immediately. The answer is quite clear. We simply need to reinstate best practices.
So when you say best practices, we're talking about your basics like reading, math, arithmetic, getting politics out of the classroom. Parents from across the spectrum are unified, and they want this stuff out of their schools, and they want their schools going back to what they're supposed to do, which is educate the kids, not indoctrinate.
Right. I mean, there has been a clear bipartisan wave of support for the school boards here in Maryland amongst families and employers, saying that, look, when it comes to this public schools, why is it that the public schools removed phonics from the schools, experienced an immediate and dramatic drop in literacy rates across the state, and it took over a decade, I believe, to reinstate just a portion of that? That's insanity. I mean, there's no excuse for that.
And also, literacy rates in Maryland have plunged. And this is while spending per student has gone through the roof.
It is 12%.
12% of eighth graders tested at grade level.
Yes, which is shocking. I mean,
12%. 88% of Maryland school kids could not read at eighth grade level. That is abysmal.
We have entire school districts, the most notorious of which is Baltimore. But we have entire school districts where there's almost no child reading at grade level, including math as well. I mean,
all while we throw billions of dollars at the school system in some kind of failed hope that money will change the outcome.
There is not enough money in the world to make a bad policy work.
That's perfect. We got to quote and unquote that. And that really is what's sinking our schools. It's not the teachers. The teachers are phenomenal. Kids can get to school no problem. We make sure they're there. We make sure they're there. We make sure they're fed. We make sure they're ready to roll. All of these programs are awesome. Identity politics is what people are focusing on in our public schools now. The curriculum, the teachers' unions and their influence on it have really sunk our kids to a new low.
We had several months ago, we had the president of the Board of Education of Carroll County on, the #1 performing school district in Maryland. And he said point blank that one of the top 2 reasons for the success of their public schools is that they do not allow teachers to take time away from teaching the skills of life and employment in order to talk about these other issues. As important as a parent may or may not believe that they are, that parent can do what they want with their child, but they do not take time away from the classroom instruction to teach anything other than life skills, employment skills.
We figured out that there's a finite amount of minutes per day that we're actually in front of these children trying to get them to learn. And I saw the numbers boil down. Like out of an 8-hour school day, I think 40 minutes was actually spent in active instruction. This 40 minutes, if you fill up that 40 minutes with things like gender identity or identity politics or whatever else you're going to fill it up with, whether it's true or false doesn't really matter. That time is vital to learn math and reading and, arithmetic and all the other things that our kids need to survive in this world.
You are 100% correct.
So it's time for us to get to the interviews, Ethan. We interviewed a lot of very interesting people. Tell us a little bit about some of the people that we're going to interview.
And so we have a range of individuals, from public school leaders to a past mayor of the city of Frederick, to individuals running for Congress.
On both sides, by the way.
On both sides, that are bringing their vast amount of expertise, their breadth of expertise, and helping to educate us on what are the issues in our schools.
All right. Welcome to Mid-Maryland Votes. Kai, if you could take a moment and introduce yourself.
So my name is Kai Burhans. I'm a lifelong Frederick County resident and a current Republican candidate for County Council District 2.
Kai, do you believe that parents in Frederick County have enough say in what's being taught in the classrooms as a whole?
I would have to say no. I think you can see from tonight's event, I think you can see from the Board of Education meetings that our current Board of Education has kind of tried to shut out parents. Parental rights, parental involvement in schools has been very lackluster in Frederick County. I think it's imperative that in this election that we elect some new school board members who are going to restore parental rights and bring the parents back into the decision making in the classroom.
And so what is the biggest issue in Frederick County Public Schools right now?
Well, I think for like-minded folks like ourselves, I think it's policy 443. Parents don't want to see boys in girls' bathrooms. They want to have some transparency when it comes to these decisions. Obviously, kids have been forced into uncomfortable situations with the, some of the LGBTQ community members. No disrespect for them. Everyone's got, their own things they're going through. But I think the current school board has really pushed an agenda that has made a lot of parents uncomfortable, and Policy 443 is one of those.
Do you think that the school board should reflect the values of the community, or kind of try to lead the community in different directions?
I think maybe a little bit of both. I think it should definitely reflect the values of the community, but I also think they need to make sure they're pushing forth a vision that allows these kids to succeed in school, allows them to learn the 1, 2, 3s, learn the ABCs, and, but stay away from the social policies and stuff like that. Whether it's, left or right, we just need to focus on education and making sure we're getting these test scores up.
Mm-hmm. And do you trust the current school board to represent families?
I would have to say no. I think it's been pretty clear from seeing some of these meetings that there's a lot of parents that are upset. I know neighbors of mine are upset, friends of mine who have just had kids are not happy with them and are looking at moving out of state. I don't have anything against any particular members of the school board, but I definitely think they need to do a better job with transparency with the parents.
What qualities would you like to see in Board of Education members in the future? And they could be people that are going to be elected.
Well, number one, it's candidates that are going to focus on the 1, 2, 3s, ABCs, and not the social policies. Candidates that are going to respect parental rights and make sure parents are always involved in what's going on in the classroom. And it's going to be candidates that make sure that we don't have divisive books in the libraries. I think all the people on the school board are probably great people, but at the end of the day, we need to have some more transparency within that Board of Education. We need to be involving those, those parents. And for me, I can tell you right now, the 4 candidates that I would say you need to vote for: Heather Fletcher, Tyler Walker, Shelley Potter, and Jeff Seidel.
Is that the common sense?
It's common sense slate plus the orange ballot. Obviously, they just got together. I think they've done a really good job this campaign in trying to present a common sense kind of vision. And I know that they teamed up with Heather Fletcher, and I think they've done really, really well. And I'm looking forward to their election.
And what is it going to take to create this change that you're talking about?
It's going to take teamwork. It's going to take all of us kind of getting together and saying, "Hey, look, we may not agree on every single issue, but we've got to put our heads down, get to work, and really bring out the vote in this election."
Kai, you have an election coming up, don't you? Would you like to talk more about that? And how can our viewers help you out?
Well, just to talk about my election, so I am running for County Council District 2. I am one of 2 Republican candidates. As far as my vision, I'm running on a lower spending and sustainable growth agenda. If you want to reach out to me or get involved, you can go to Kai Burhands for Frederick County on Facebook, kaiburhands.com. Or you can go to Kai Burhands for County Council on Instagram, and you can reach out to me. You can direct message me. You can donate to the campaign. You can fill out forms to get involved by putting up a sign, door knocking, stuffing envelopes, whatever, and we can definitely get you involved.
Kai, thank you so much for being on Mid-Maryland Votes, man. We appreciate having you.
Thank you for having me.
And good luck in your election. You're a very sharp candidate. I think you're going to do very well.
Thank you.
I believe is Susan Centennial. She is the head of the Common Sense Slate, a different organization than Better Maryland Schools, but standing for the same principles. I think she does a great job of introducing the various issues that are going to be discussed.
Centennial. Susan, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yes, I'm a Frederick, Maryland resident, and I am the campaign manager for the Common Sense Slate for the school board, and also have a Fletcher for the school board.
Well, thank you for joining us. Do you feel like parents in Frederick County have enough say in what's being taught in the classrooms?
I absolutely do not feel that they have enough say, and there's one really big reason for that. I think that they don't necessarily even realize what's going on in the schools. To give you an example, recently the Supreme Court decided that parents, you can't keep secrets from parents in schools anymore. But the Frederick County Public Schools has not yet answered us in terms of how they are going to notify parents that they do get to make some choices and they do get to opt their kids out of certain classes that they don't agree with, that aren't really even classes. They're more indoctrination and, bringing up a lot of sexual material even for kids that are 5, 6, and 7. I don't think parents are really aware, and I think they should have a full voice in what happens.
What is the biggest issue in Frederick County schools right now?
Well, it's multifaceted. For one thing, the test scores are very, very low. Nationwide, we're extremely low. We're like 26th out of 80, I think. And basically, that they're failing grades. If you brought home a report card with 50s and 30s and 80s, that would be a bad report card. At least it would have been in my house. And then the other thing too is there's just too much. There's not enough focus on academic excellence. School should be about academics, academic excellence, good test scores, reading, writing, math, science, history, all of those good things, and the heck with all the rest. Parents should be able to handle social issues in their home and raise their children in those ways as they see fit. Not the school. It's not the school's job to indoctrinate them.
How about the school boards themselves? Should they reflect the values of the constituents, or should they lead in a direction that they believe is best to go in?
I think they should, excuse me, reflect the values of their constituents, and I think that if more parents were aware of what was going on, that the parents would definitely be louder voices, and then they would really be reflecting more and more parents. I really think a lot of parents just aren't quite aware of what's happening. They look at that nice Apple ballot that comes out, and it's endorsed by the school board, it's endorsed by the union and the teachers, and it's got that nice little fresh little apple, and it looks very wholesome, but it's not wholesome. It's very dark. It's all about money, it's all about funding, it's all about social indoctrination, it's about anything and everything other than academic excellence, parent involvement. It's not the pretty little thing that you think it is.
Mm-hmm. And do you trust the current school board to represent families?
I do not, because there are only 2 conservative members on the school board, and I trust them very much. But we have other members on the school board who I'm not even sure exactly why they are there. I attended a meeting maybe 3 or 4 weeks ago, and one of them was just rambling on about her life and crazy things that had nothing to do with school, nothing to do with children, nothing to do with improving academic excellence, nothing. It was just like I was sitting there going, does she just want an audience and something to do? No, I don't think that they're doing a good job. No.
So the school board moving forward, what kind of candidates would you like to see on there?
The 4 candidates that we have right now that I'm the campaign manager for are wonderful, wonderful, truly good, solid people who have the best interests of the children in the forefront of their mind. They focus on common sense. Common sense is having boys in boys' bathrooms and girls in girls' bathrooms.
We recently interviewed Jamie Brennan, and she said that she was told that trying to protect the innocence of her children was white privilege. Do you agree with that?
I agree in protecting the innocence of all children, right? White, black, Hispanic. A child is a child. That was a ridiculous statement, and that's always their fallback.
What is it going to take to create the change?
It's going to take a strong, dedicated school board that is a flip of what it is now. We need conservative people who have common sense values in mind. We also have to have schools that are very safe. I don't think boys and girls in the same bathroom is safe. I don't think boys playing women's sports, girls' sports, is safe at all for girls. That's pretty much been proven. I mean, look, the Olympics don't allow that anymore, and yet Frederick County still does. I think the Olympians know a little bit more than we do.
Well, Susan, we really appreciate you spending some time with us. Thank you so much for your thoughts.
Thank you very much for having me. I appreciate it.
Have a great night.
Okay, thanks very much.
Yeah,
thank you.
Welcome to Mid-Maryland Votes. Chris Burnett, if you could take a moment, introduce yourself.
I'm Chris Burnett. I'm running for Congressional District 6. That's Western Maryland. I am recently retired from the Marine Corps. I spent 22 years on active duty as a lawyer. I retired last year out of Mar4 Cyber, and I decided to run for Congress shortly after I retired, and my wife realized that being at home was not in her best interest.
Chris, you have a beautiful family, got lots of young kids in our school systems. Do you feel like parents in Frederick County have enough say in what's being taught in our classrooms?
Well, I think across the board there's a real tension right now between what is going on with school boards and the administration, and then what parents are having a chance to influence that that discussion. I think it's long overdue for a correction. We've had a chance to live all across the country while I was on active duty. We lived in Florida, we lived in California, Hawaii, and Virginia. And I can tell you that where we've been most surprised and quite frankly disappointed has been putting all 4 of our kids into public schools in Montgomery County and here in Maryland.
And what are the biggest issues in the Frederick County or Maryland-wide, the school boards?
Well, I think there's a real disconnect in terms of what are we trying to achieve. And I don't mean to oversimplify it, but I think there's a real focus on indoctrination at times over education. And that is, you'll hear it in terms of wanting to expose or wanting to have representation. My concern is that we've replaced learning objectives with these other variables that quite frankly could be a consideration but shouldn't be the only consideration when we're determining curriculum.
Do you think the school boards are reflecting the values of the communities they serve, or are they trying to lead us in some other direction?
I really do not think that they reflect the values of the communities they serve. And I'm not exactly sure how and when that occurred, but I don't know if the interest is that we need to have more teachers on the school board, or we need to have people that currently have children in the schools on the school board. But it appears as though their agenda does not line up with the current needs or expectations of parents.
Is it even possible to be able to trust school board members to represent families in this current state?
And I think you can trust, but I think that there's a breakdown right now of communication. I do not think that this is a question of malice. I think this is a question of a disconnect, and I think what you have to do is foster a connection. I think some of the folks on the school board, you might need to look at what their priorities are, have that open conversation, but I don't know that there's necessarily a malicious intent per se. I do think that there's a breakdown of communication, there's been a breakdown of expectations, and the first step would of course be to empower parents to have a greater choice, and that choice would foster competition. That competition would raise the standards both in the public and private side.
So what kind of candidates do we need on these school boards to affect these changes?
First and foremost, I think you need candidates that listen. You're supposed to be effectuating the intent of parents, and you're supposed to be looking out for the good of the community. First and foremost, we want to educate our children to be competitive in what's going to be an incredibly competitive space. As we transition from the current economy into the AI-driven economy, the need for critical thinking and expertise is going to be at a premium. And if we're caught up in talking about things that are not related to your ability to think critically and to solve problems, then we're wasting time and we're wasting taxpayer money.
And what is it going to take to be able to create this change you're referring to?
I think you've got a great slate of candidates. And I think the candidates you have in Frederick are doing their very, very best to get their message out, to engage parents and to get people out and to take the school board elections extremely seriously. And I think that group of candidates up here in Frederick are going to set the tone for across Western Maryland to have parents leading this conversation and making sure that our children's education is first and foremost.
Do you think the schools are focusing too much on teaching politics and not enough on the basics?
100%. I do think at some point we lost sight of the fact that schools exist entirely to set the conditions for children to learn, think critically, and to be competitive in a hyper-competitive economic environment. And at some point we lost sight of setting conditions for them to compete and became more about virtue signaling and indoctrination.
Chris, you are an awesome guest. We love having you on Mid-Maryland Votes. Can our viewers help you out in your upcoming election? How do they do that?
And I appreciate that. The best place is to go to the website, burnettforcongress.com. From there, you can link to all of our social media sites where we've published over 200 videos on every presentation we've given, a lot of our policy positions. So burnettforcongress.com, and then look on the events page for anything we have coming up in all of the different counties across Western Maryland.
Well, Chris, you have our support at Mid-Maryland Votes, and good luck in the upcoming election.
Thanks. Good seeing you, gents.
Go for it.
Thank you for joining us, Brenda Chan. If you could take a moment and introduce yourself.
Hello, everyone. Good evening. My name is Dr. Brenda Chan, and I live in Hagerstown, Washington County. And I'm running for Lieutenant Governor. That's very important for you to know.
Dr. Cham, you're a returning guest. We love having you on because you're so refreshingly honest about everything.
I appreciate that.
You're a woman of faith and integrity. We love having you on. I want to ask you something about the Frederick County Public Schools. Okay, do you believe that parents have enough say in what's being taught in our schools in Maryland?
Right. I think parents must be very involved in that educational process for their children. No one knows the child better than the parents. So parents must be involved in those conversations. There can be no daylight between parents and that teacher or that administrator. So I absolutely agree that parents need to be involved in those educational conversations.
And what is the biggest issue in Frederick County Public Schools right now?
Wow, from what I understand, I live in Washington County. I live in a great community. We have a good school board. I'm excited about our conservative school board, but unfortunately, Frederick County is having a tough time. I am aware of, I think it's policy, is it 443? That policy with regard to allowing boys in girls' bathrooms. That just cannot happen in the public school setting. It just should not be allowed to happen. Parents entrust the school to do what's best for their child. We have got to make sure that when students enter those school doors and into the classroom, that they are educated on core academics, basic ABCs and 1, 2, 3s. They should know what the teacher's political party affiliation is. They should know if the teacher is married to a man or a woman. Those things need to be just aren't important in the classroom. Focus on core academics, prepare students for life after high school to get them ready for post-secondary outcomes, and that's what we need to be doing for children.
And do you trust the current Frederick County Board of Education to represent families?
Wow. Well, let's see here. I know a few members on the Board of Ed, and those members that I do know, Colt Black, Jamie Brennan, those conservative members of the board, I do trust them. I trust and I know them well. I know them as my friends. I know what their values are and what their conservative values entail. I do trust them. It sounds like the school board is having a tough time.
Well, Dr. Brenda Chan, we thank you so much for joining us. We wish you and John Myrick very good luck in the upcoming election. I think you'll make a great lieutenant governor.
I appreciate that. I do too.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, my friend. God bless you.
Welcome to Mid-Maryland Votes. Could you take a moment and introduce yourself?
Sure. Thanks for having me. My name is Caroline Hutchison, also known as Carolina from Medina, because my business is called Medina Media Productions. We specialize in making podcasts like this, producing videos, TikToks, YouTube, content for social media, websites, all kinds of stuff.
So Caroline, we're here for better Maryland schools, so we all think that that's a priority, obviously. Do you feel like parents in Frederick County have enough input and say into what's being taught in the classrooms?
No, I don't. And I don't think that we have the transparency we need to have. I really don't think that we have a say, and I don't think our kids are getting the academic education that they need right now, generally.
And so what is the biggest issue in Frederick County Public Schools?
I feel like transparency generally is a big problem. I think that parents are not given, if my kid had a problem, I would want to know about it. And that to me is just insane. I don't care what side of the party you're on. I feel like that is a big problem.
Do you think the school boards reflect the values of our community, or are they trying to lead us in a different direction?
No, I think that people would be surprised if they actually took a tour through the school. I would encourage parents to go tour your schools. That's something that I did do in the past, and I was appalled at the different flags and different things that are in the classrooms that I don't think people are aware of, to be quite honest.
And do you trust the current school board to represent families?
I have a very naive perspective of who's in office right now, just to be transparent, but the things I'm learning about what's happening and the current policies that are being enforced, I'm not happy with. So no, I'm not happy with what's happening currently, and not a specific person, but I don't feel like the parents are not getting what they need out of the school system in general for their kids right now.
So the school board sets the culture for the entire school system. What are the ideal candidates that you would like to see elected to that board?
Well, there is a common sense slate that has been formed right now. It is a part of, it is considered somewhat connected to the Orange Ballot, but it is Heather Fletcher, Jeff Seidel, Shelley Potter, and Tyler Walker. I believe that those four candidates, if we are able to get them elected, we would be able to sway the board in the way that we need to start making an actual impact and influence on the Board of Education in Frederick County.
And so what is it going to take to make that happen?
people like me, younger generation of voters, we need everybody to get out and vote. Like it's not cliche. It's not like something, your vote really does matter right now. And I think parents need to wake up and see what's going on and be more informed.
Do you think schools are focusing too much on politics and less on education?
I think that right now there's a lot of people in the school board, from what I'm hearing, that are not making decisions based on what's best for the kids. They're making decisions based on what's best for their perspective of how they're seen. And I don't think that the money that we're spending is going towards the right things. We need more healthier lunches would be great, better health education programs, and just more common sense in general.
Well, Caroline, we really appreciate you being on with us.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
It's great to be here.
Yep. And Robin, thank you for joining us this evening. If you want to give us a quick introduction of yourself.
Well, I'm Robin Thicker. I'm running in the 6th District, Western Maryland, and I'm going to be friendly to President Trump. Delaney and Trone are fighting to see who will be the first person to impeach President Trump. But I know that he's the best back scratcher in Washington, and if we're nice to him, he will help Western Maryland.
Do you feel that parents in the Frederick County Public Schools, Robin, do you feel like they have enough say in what's being taught in the classrooms?
Absolutely not. I think parents should rule the public schools. Their view is important. They think how much time and effort they put into developing their young children. And I'm very much opposed to allowing guys to participate in women's sports, unlike the present school board. We need to establish parental rights and have more parental control over what happens in the classroom.
And what is the biggest issue in Frederick County schools right now?
The biggest issue, I think, is lack of parental control. I've been to some of the school board meetings, and there are protestations going on that looks like the teachers really don't control what's going on in the school. At least they're not considering the parents' point of view. So I think that parental control, parental influence is what's lacking here, and that's the most important issue.
Should school boards reflect the values of the community, or should they be leading the community in a different direction?
They should be reflecting the community. And Frederick County is a conservative county. We want to have our children be rising stars and to learn reading, writing, and arithmetic, and not a lot of other social ambiguities and skills. We need to get back to basics so that our kids will be up to snuff.
Do you trust the current school board to represent families?
No, I don't trust the current school board. That's why I'm here, because we have some very good conservatives running for school board, and I'm supporting them and have been going out almost every weekend with them to distribute literature at homes in the county.
What kind of school board candidates do we need?
We need someone who is reflective of the values of the community, who is someone who is interested in educational values and focusing on reading, writing, and arithmetic, not other social values, not on transgender rights, not on things like that. As a matter of fact, we had a situation in Montgomery County, and I live just over the border by Sugarloaf Mountain, where they refused to allow opt-out of sexual orientation education because too many parents wanted to opt out. They should have gone with the majority, with what the parents said.
And what is it going to take to create this change?
I think it's going to take this election, where we need to elect some people who are going to be serving with Jamie Brenn and Mr. Black.
Robin, we really appreciate you spending some time with us tonight. We wish you good luck in your elections coming up.
Well, I've been in good company here tonight, and anytime I'm with the parents of better schools and with the candidates that they're supporting.
Welcome to the show. If you could take a moment and introduce yourself.
Thank you. My name's Jeff Holtzinger. I'm running for county executive. I'm a lifelong resident of Frederick County. I married my high school sweetheart. We've been married 38 years. We have 4 kids who are all grown. Went to Frederick County Public Schools, and fortunately they all live pretty close by and all have good jobs, so I feel very lucky.
You're also a former mayor, right?
I was the mayor of the city of Frederick from 2006 to 2010, but more importantly, I was the city engineer prior to that. And I worked around Frederick County pretty much my whole career as a civil and structural engineer and an attorney.
Do you think parents in Frederick County have enough input into what's being taught in the classrooms?
I do not. I think schools have changed dramatically in the last 20 or 30 years. I actually have seen the change between my youngest and oldest child going through the system, and the changes are not good.
And what is the biggest issue in Frederick County Public Schools that you are seeing?
There's a lot, but I would say from my point of view, accountability. They get a tremendous amount of money, and I understand Frederick County Public Schools needs a lot of money to operate, but there is zero accountability or pretty much close to zero accountability. They come in every year with the Boy Who Cried Wolf story. They get tremendous amount of money because of the maintenance of effort. Even things that have been shown later on to have been not needed is built into the budget in subsequent years. They never give that money back. So I think they are really putting a hurting on the taxpayers in this county, and we're not getting what we're paying for.
Hey, should the school boards, Jeff, should they reflect the values of the community, or should they have a kind of a mission to lead the community in different directions?
I think they should reflect the values of the community. Obviously, there's times when you're going to have to lead on some things that may not be popular, but I think the majority of the school board is taking us in the wrong direction. They're imposing views that are contrary to probably the majority of parents' views of what they should be doing in schools.
Do you trust the current school board to represent families?
The majority, absolutely not.
So you say the majority, so there are some folks that you do trust.
Well, the lady just spoke here, Jamie Brennan, Colt Black, lady that just resigned because she moved to another county. But other than that, I think we're getting horrible decisions out of the school board. Frankly, I think we rival Loudoun County as being probably one of the worst school boards in the country.
So how are they going to improve? What kind of candidates on that committee or on the school board would improve it?
Ones that are not going to rubber stamp anything the FCPS administrative staff bring, or the superintendent and her lackeys bring to them. Certainly they need to give some deference to them, but there needs to be more critical thinking. We need to, there hasn't been a Jimmy Reed or Gordon Cooley on the school board for a long time. And if you got either one of you folks know them, they would question things. We do not have that from the majority of the school board right now.
And so what is it going to take in order to create this change?
I think events like this, getting people to not just look at who the teachers union supports, and I think it's just going to, the tough thing is people are busy with their lives, getting them to understand who they're voting for to represent them on the school board. I'm running for county executive, but frankly, I think the school board may be the most important elected office in the county. So, frankly, and there's where the big money is spent. So this school board election may be the most important election in the county.
Jeff, do you think the schools are focusing too much on politics and not enough on real education?
Absolutely. We've gotten so, and one of the ways I think they could save money is by getting back to focusing on the basics, focusing on reading, writing, arithmetic. I'm not sure I ever trust them to teach history again, but those type of things. How many kids know what communism was when they come out of public schools now, or the horrors of what China did and what the Soviet Union did to the folks that were living under that system? I don't think they know anymore, because you see young people out there celebrating communism, and it's insane.
Jeff Holtzinger, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
It was wonderful talking to you.
Thank you.
Rich, welcome to Mid-Maryland Votes. Thank you so much for being with us. Would you like to introduce yourself for us?
My name is Rich Collins. I'm the third vice chair of the MDGOP. I'm a native Marylander all my life.
Do you feel like parents have enough say in what's being taught in the classrooms in Maryland?
Absolutely not. It's in the news that a parent comes in, wants to ask questions, they're shut out. The next thing we hear around the country is their children are being administered prescription drugs without their permission. So it's prevalent all across the country, and that's I believe that.
And what's the biggest issue in Frederick County Public Schools that you're aware of?
The issue of blueprint and the impact that it's having on the finances. So in the case of the charter government, the county council in Frederick, and there's only so many dollars that they can provide to the school system, and then they expect the Board of Education to provide all these services, but the money's not there. So I would have to say blueprint, Frederick County, just like every other county in the state of Maryland.
So do you think that the school boards are adequately reflecting the values of the communities, or are they kind of trying to lead the community to another direction?
It depends on the counties. I can tell you this, I helped get the members of the Carroll County Board of Education elected.
Which is solidly conservative.
It sure is, and that's not the case in Frederick County. And so I'm stepping across into the county line of Frederick to do what I can to help the conservative candidates get elected to Frederick County's Board of Education.
And do you trust the current school board to represent families?
No, I do not. I see things. I see, like, when Colt Black is sitting there and he takes issue with being forced to refer to students in a certain way, and then they want to take him to court, and they're influenced by the liberals that are in Frederick County. So they bring suit against him. And so, no, the answer is no. Board of Education is not reflecting the values of the citizens of Frederick County.
It is important to note that Colt was exonerated of those charges.
Thank you for saying that.
Are the schools focusing too much on politics and not enough on actual education of our kids?
Well, of course, because I'm not in the classroom, and to me, it's all hearsay. But when I just heard Tori Snow talk about the fact that young people in high school don't know algebra, I believe what they're telling us. And they would rather have them know all about the various genders in our society as opposed to learning how to, do those things necessary for once they get out of high school and into college, or they actually get out into the real world if they're not going on to college.
Mm-hmm. And what is it going to take to create this change you're talking about?
I hate to say this, it's going to be something cataclysmic. And I get kind of nervous when I use a word like that, but people are going to have to recognize all of these years that people have been swallowing the stuff that's been fed to them. They finally come to the realization it's not working. And human nature is that they're going to continue to wallow in the mire because that's where they grew up, and they do not want to deny it. It has to be something cataclysmic that's going to shake them out of that mindset.
Rich, thank you so much for joining us on Mid-Maryland Votes. We appreciate your thoughts.
Well, thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you for your time.
Thanks.
Tori Snow, thank you for joining us at Mid-Maryland Votes. If you can take a moment and introduce yourself.
I am Tori Snow, the co-host of the Free Range Politics podcast with my co-host Ripsy Morgan, and we're excited to be here at the Better Maryland Schools fundraiser.
Thanks, Tori, for joining us. Do you feel like parents in the Frederick County Public Schools, do you think that they are aware of what's being taught in the classrooms?
Look, I think that the COVID pandemic taught us that a lot of parents aren't aware of what's going on in the classrooms. And quite frankly, there's a level of trust that was betrayed during the pandemic that I would expect that more parents are paying attention. Do they know everything that's going on? I know that at least in other jurisdictions, these schools go out of their way to keep parents from being involved. So I'm not confident that parents know all that they should know when it comes to their child's education.
And so what is the biggest issue in our public schools right now?
Look, I think a lack of focus. To me, we don't have agreement about what is important in school. Getting an education, preparing people to be involved in productive careers should be the focus. I do feel like there's a divided focus right now about let's prioritize, social issues and let's prioritize general understanding. I think that the flip-flopping of those priorities has created a situation that's really difficult to plan for a stronger future for our economy.
Tori, how do you feel about values? Does the school board reflect the values of the community, or is their job to lead us in a different direction?
Well, look, I personally see all elected officials as stewards of public money. That's ultimately what it comes down to. Are they spending the money wisely? When it comes to values, obviously your values are reflected in how you prioritize your spending of money. And so are values important? Absolutely. The values matter as it relates to how they are spending public money. That's my own personal belief.
Mm-hmm. And do you trust the school board members as a rule that we have in this state? Do you trust them to represent families?
Look, I really do believe that getting to know them and seeing their decisions, evaluating the type of votes that they take, that would give me the information to know. I don't have a Well, I have a general skepticism of politicians in general, but I do try to go out of my way to not judge individuals if I don't know them personally or have not had access to information that informs me about who they are.
And as a rule of thumb, as it stands throughout our state, what is it going to take to create the changes?
Parents and getting engaged, paying attention to what's going on in the school boards, and putting people on these school boards that reflect the priorities that they have. That's what it's going to take, is civic engagement, civic education.
Tori, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you guys
man.
for
We
the
appreciate you.
invitation.
Thank you so much.
All right, so Tori, before we wrap it up, is there anything you want to leave us with?
I would love to encourage all of your followers or subscribers to go check us out. We're running on Parallel Tracks, Free Range Politics on YouTube. Everyone should go to YouTube. We also have Facebook and Instagram, but our content goes to YouTube first. That's where our deep dive, my co-host Jeripsy Morgan and myself are doing our best to create the highest quality product for everyone to stay involved. So please, Free Range Politics on YouTube. If you would like to support us, there's a Patreon link right there on the homepage, and you can become a monthly subscriber.
Thank you.
Thanks again,
Thank
Tori.
you, guys.
Appreciate you very much.
Great talking
Thank
to
you, guys.
Mid-Maryland Votes. Tyler, if you could take a moment and introduce yourself.
My name is Tyler Kierton. I'm work for a child care company. I've been with children, working with children my whole life. Used to, even up till recently, taught accounting at a community college, local community college. So I've kind of been in education for quite some time. Father, 3 kids in elementary school. Yeah.
So we are here tonight, Tyler, because of better Maryland schools. We all want better schools. My question to you is this. As far as the Frederick County Public Schools go, do parents have enough say in what's being taught in the classrooms?
You know, not only do they not have enough say, they have no say. They literally have no say. I will say, if you get a good teacher, if your kids have good teachers, you do have teachers that are willing to talk and answer questions and have great, feedback in parent-teacher conferences. But from an administrative level, from knowing curriculum, there's literally no say. Perhaps there are committees at the central level that talk about curriculum, but they're all handpicked by a certain number of people, and the conversation and decisions are completely controlled by the administration.
And so, what is the biggest issue in Frederick County Public Schools that you see?
Gosh, there's a number of them. But I will say the biggest issue for me is parents getting a say, just like we were just talking about, in their kids' education. Being involved in that. You could go next to finances and, a number of different issues. But parents being able to have a hands-on say in what happens in the classroom is number one for me as a dad.
Do you feel like the school boards, especially the Frederick County Public School Boards, do you feel like they reflect the community's values? Or do you think they're trying to lead us in some other direction?
They don't represent my values. I can say that. At least the majority does not. In fact, I think they actively work towards, for the majority, special interests. They work on behalf of the unions. They have a vested interest in that their sponsors, their funding, their endorsements come from the unions to put their interests first before the parents. In fact, they come right out, many of them, and say, the parents are not our constituents. We don't really care about their interests, is what they communicate through their actions.
And so, is it possible to trust the current school board, or are they an exception to this?
I can just say I don't trust the majority of the current school board to make the right decisions. I do not trust them. And I'm not sure how you can, given once again the conflict of interest that they have with where all of their funding comes from.
What kind of candidates for the school board would you think would better reflect the values of the community?
Well, first of all, I would get to know candidates, and that's what we are doing as Better Maryland Schools, is trying to meet different candidates, get to know them, get to know their positions, and it would be ones for me that care about getting back to education, enough of the social agendas and pushing those things. Let's just teach our kids reading, writing, arithmetic, science, literature. And then let's also give them a chance to socialize and be in social groups and go out and, have recess. As much as that sounds crazy, we don't have enough recess in elementary schools. And we need to get kids out there socializing and learning, and that should be what governs every single decision that the school board makes. And
what is it going to take to create this change you're talking about?
It's people getting involved. I can tell you, 2 years ago, I hadn't thought about school board for 1 second of my entire life. I probably hadn't voted for in the school board. Maybe I looked it up a few times, but it takes people actually going, wow, look how big of a deal this is. It perhaps is the most important and the most impactful vote that you will take is school board. And
especially if you have children.
Yes, exactly. Especially if you have children. Even if you don't have children, these are the people that are growing up that are going to be paying into Social Security funds, that are going to be supporting our society as time goes on. So getting involved and understanding what's at stake, that's the key.
Yeah. Wonderful. Thank you for,
Thank you
for being
guys.
on Mid-Maryland Votes.
Yeah, appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Folks, you've just seen our interviews with some of the people at Better Maryland Schools. You can judge yourselves. But Ethan, I was amazed by some of the information we learned. Like, for instance, we learned a lot about the teachers' unions. What's your overall impression of what our guest thought about the teachers' unions in general?
Well, essentially, they had a consensus that the teachers' union is possibly the biggest impediment for the reasons that our academic performance statewide has dropped, why our expenses have gone up in the midst of this drop in academic performance, and that they are the primary force standing in the way of returning our schools to what they've always been.
And I think one of the interesting things one of our guests brought up was the fact that the teachers' unions do not represent the parents. They do not represent the kids. They represent the teachers.
Yes.
And what is best for the teachers. Several people brought up the point that the teachers' unions are not pro-parent and pro-kid.
And it's important to point out that it is not the job of the teachers' union to be pro-parent, pro-kid, pro-education, or even pro-safety in our schools per se.
Right.
They have a specific mission. Where the problem comes in is where they are oftentimes portrayed, and they do it themselves, where they portray themselves that supporting their policies is supporting the children, or supporting academic performance, or supporting school safety. Their policies support the pay, the benefits, and the working conditions of teachers. It is not accurate to mistake them for representing the welfare of our children.
And also, it was very interesting to learn from some of our guests that, by and large, the teachers in Maryland are excellent teachers, and they have options. That really they can become part of any union they want for the same benefits. And sometimes I think the teachers support the unions for those benefits, health benefits and coverage for discipline and things like that, thinking they have to, even though they disagree completely with the policies put out by the teachers union.
As someone who has spoken to many, many teachers over the years, I actually can very strongly support what you just said.
Hey, Ethan, let's just be very clear, though. We're not here to endorse everything about Better Maryland Schools, but we want our guests to have an open mind as they see these interviews, as they take in this information from a really, truly a bipartisan background of people, and then they can make their own determination on whether Better Maryland Schools is something that they would like to join.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. I think that we have a great group of guests giving us information here, and I'm looking forward to what you, the audience, thinks.
So make sure you like, follow, and comment in our comment sections, and we'll see you next time on Mid-Maryland Votes. Say goodbye. This conversation proves something many people thought was impossible in today's political climate. Americans from different backgrounds coming together around common concerns for children, education, and parental rights. Whether it was Policy 443, school spending, or politics in the classroom, voters will decide the future direction of Maryland schools at the ballot box. Mid-Maryland Votes, bringing people from different backgrounds together for real, civil conversations that still matter. Like, follow, and share, and we'll see you next time on Mid-Maryland Votes.